I remember when this was all farmland as far as the eye could see. Old man Peabody owned all of this. He had this crazy idea about breeding pine.
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
This is terrible. Whatever is happening to me is terrible. I mentioned earlier, the reason I've taken a couple of days off and put up some repeats is I got a cough that won't go away. And so I went to the doctor on Halloween of all times. Everyone's in costume. And it's been so weird, so long since I've sat down and done an episode, I don't know if I've even told this story. So if I've told it, just skip ahead a minute and a half, 2 minutes. You don't have to hear it again because I might be losing my mind. But I went on Halloween to have this cough checked out because I can't laugh. If I laugh, it turns into a cough. There are moments where I just immediately start hacking. It's totally... I have no other symptoms. Well, another one, but I'll get to it in a second. So I went on Halloween to the doctor, and they were desperately trying to give out flu shots to everybody, but they were all in costume. There was a woman in the lobby dressed as a nerd with high water pants and glasses with tape around the bridge. Flu shot, sir? I'm like, first off, I don't want a flu shot in the middle of the lobby because I don't like shots and I might curse. And second, you're in a costume. It's weird. So I went up to the floor where my doctor is, and they're all in costume too. I saw a flapper. I saw a gypsy woman. There was a guy dressed as a pirate, and he was pushing a cart through the waiting room offering flu shots, so you couldn't even escape him up there. And it's like, no, I don't want a flu shot in the waiting room. So I go to see the doctor, and she gave me some antibiotics, which is supposed to clear it up, which it hasn't. And at the end, I said, hey, I just want to, thanks for seeing me on Halloween. And she said, I had forgotten it was Halloween, the doctor said. And I said, well, there's a unicorn out there. So it's either Halloween or whatever you gave me is so good, it's already affecting me and I haven't taken it yet. Because there was somebody running around in one of those inflatable unicorn costumes. Let's all take a break while Jeff coughs. And then at the end, they says, well, it's Halloween, thank you. And she leaves and she says, the nurse will be in to give you your flu shot. Like, it wasn't even an option. I'm getting this flu shot. And, I had the flu last year and it knocked me down, man. So I'm standing there thinking, well, if I take the shot, it's 1 second of uncomfortableness versus 2 or 3 days of misery. So I should probably just take the shot. So the woman comes in and she can tell I'm completely beside myself over this stupid shot, completely irrational. And she says, well, what am I supposed to do? Do you want me to do a countdown? Do you want me to give it to you by surprise? What do you want to do? I said, I just want you to do it, okay? I was saying the F word. I'm like, I don't like shots. I just want this over with. Can you just do it? And she goes, sir. Yeah, sir, I've already done it. And I looked at her and I said, you have? I didn't feel it. She goes, I know. And I said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. She says, it happens all the time. And then she actually called me a week later because she forgot to mark down that she gave me the flu shot. And she said, just double checking our records. And I was like, well, it was Halloween. And she goes, oh, you were the guy that cursed. Yeah, we gave it to you. I said, I'm still sorry. So anyways, but the cough hasn't gone away. It's lessened a little bit, but it's still there. And what's worse now, it's something in my nasal passages has affected me in the most bizarre way possible. And we're going on, I think, day 6. Day 6. I can't taste food. Food has no taste. It doesn't matter what I eat because I can't taste anyways. I'm going off of texture and temperature at this point. And this is the weirdest thing ever. And because I can't smell the food or taste the food, I don't crave the food. So I have to eat because I tell myself I have to eat. I don't really get hungry. Sometimes I'll get, like, in an instant, I'll become instantly hungry because my body's like, idiot, you're not eating the way you were. So this has been the weirdest diet ever. I've done at least 4 pounds just in a week because I don't snack the way I used to. I haven't had a Starbucks because what's the bloody point? I can't taste it. I'm paying $5 for wet glop because that's without the taste. Starbucks is wet glop. A Frappuccino is wet glop, and I can't taste it. So it's good and bad. If this is forever, my life is going to change because food is one of the great joys in life. And they ask me, where do you want to eat? And I go, I don't care. You guys decide, because whatever I eat, it doesn't matter. I can't taste it. I don't think they're taking me seriously. I don't think the family's taking me seriously. You can hear my nose, right? I apologize. But I don't think the family's taking me seriously because food has no taste. It's texture and temperature. It's bizarre. The other day I ate for lunch mashed potatoes because I just like, well, I have to eat something. You know, and mashed potatoes are $1. So, anywho, sorry to bore you with that. But it's one of those things where we're all in it together, right? There's somebody right now going, yeah, I had the same thing, man. How did you get your taste back? Is it just a matter of time? Do I need to take some special pill? I feel like Jack Nicholson in Witches of Eastwick, you know? Did God do it to us on purpose? Or was it some kind of accident? Because if it was, we could do something about it. Take a pill, get some exercise. It's a great scene. It's weird to think, like, a movie that big, The Witches of Eastwick, nobody remembers. It's not even part of pop culture. And it's a huge, huge movie. So many of them. I'm going to do a whole episode on huge movies nobody remembers, forgotten blockbusters. I've been making a list. And that's certainly one of them. Okay, so last time I ended on, I was selling my Mustang. But I remembered there was one more Mustang story I needed to tell. And that Mustang story is insane because the engine was old in the Mustang. And my brother was very into cars at the time. And he knew a guy who had a big engine that barely fit in the car. There are numbers, cubic, this and that. I don't know, horsepower. I don't know what they mean. All I know is I lost the car for a week. And when I got it back, it had a gigantic engine in it. And an engine in it that was so powerful, when you hit the gas, the car lurched forward like it was going into hyperdrive. It was arguably too dangerous a car for me to drive. I was probably going to end up wrapping it around a pole. So the car gets a new engine, and I had just met Rachel. So we were going out to Riverside to go to a dance club with her and her husband. I'm sure you know the story of her and her husband. So I drove the car out to Riverside, and my mother was incredibly upset with me for driving the car to Riverside. And I said, Ma, it's got a brand new engine in it. This is the time to drive it 40 miles. And she said, no, I wouldn't drive it that far. I said, well, they just put the engine in. If it's not going to work, what was the whole point of this thing? So I drove out. We picked up Rachel. Her husband went in another car. And we got on the freeway to go to Club Metro. I tried to go to Club Metro twice, and I've never been. Both times we didn't make it. One time it was because a friend of mine had a tiny pocket knife, and they wouldn't let us in. And the first time was in the Mustang. So we get on the freeway, and as soon as we get on the freeway proper from the on-ramp, the car died, and it wouldn't restart. And we couldn't push it up the on-ramp because we would have had to turn it around, and we would have been going backwards, if that makes sense. So we ended up pushing it forward to the next exit. So we pushed that car over a mile in the rain at night in Riverside. And let's all take a break while Jeff coughs. Pushing that Mustang was complete misery. We were wet. We were cold. We had over a mile to go. We could see the exit a mile away. Oh my God. And at one point I got really sick, and I think I vomited in the street. And Rachel tried to push me into the car to get me out of the rain, and she banged my head against the door. It was a whole comedy of errors. We had to leave the car in a parking lot overnight. My mother had to come pick me up, the whole time telling me I told you so, which in a 40-mile car trip is a lot of I told you so's. So yeah, the Mustang needed to go, and it went. I was sad to see it go. I liked that car. I think it made me much cooler than I thought I was, which is to say not at all. And I had to get a new car. Now, I was always used to paying cash for cars. You just got a car, you met somebody, you took it for a test drive. And remember the recycler? You get the recycler on Thursday, you'd look up all the cars that were for sale, call some people, find one that was available, test drive it, pay cash, get a receipt, car's yours. And if you could save up $800 or $900, you could have a car. And that's just the way it was. And I'd never gone to a car lot to buy a used car. I'd seen them in the movies, but I was like, nah, I'll just pay cash. And it got to a point where I didn't have the money for the full payment of a car. I had about $300 or $400 to put down on a car to get a car. So at the time, my sister was married to this guy who was very into cars, and he was getting a new used car. Every few months he was driving something different. And I said, dude, where do you get all these cars? And he went to this place in Downey that was this rinky-dink used car lot. It had a name. I can't remember the name. It was something stupid like A+ Cars or, Cars R Us or something stupid. But he's like, no, I'll take you there, man, because I know the owner, and he'll give you a good deal on a car. And I thought, well, I'll go take a shot at it. So we went there, and he had a car that I really wanted. Do you guys remember the Suzuki Samurai? It was a late 80s fake Jeep that was pretty inexpensive at the time. It was marketed as a car you drove just for fun. And I liked it because it looked like a Jeep, and I'd always wanted a Jeep. So I looked at this white Suzuki Samurai. It got 10,000 miles to the gallon. You never had to fill this car up. The doors were hollow. It had no trunk. It was light as a feather. It was a stick shift. And yes, it was really fun to drive. The only drawback was it had a plastic back end, because you were supposed to be able to pop it off. It was buttoned and zippered on. And you could undo the buttons and the zippers and have a convertible, a convertible open top. And this one, someone had bolted it to the frame so that you could never, if you took it off, you could never put it back on. So I didn't have that kind of car. I had one with it was not a convertible at all. It had been converted from a convertible to not be a convertible. Does that make sense? So I tell the guy at the car lot, and there were two guys there. And they were a lot like the villain from Christmas Story. What's his name? Scott Farkas and his little toadies. Oh, Scott Farkas ran. the most devious car lot in all of Downey, and him and his toadies were always trying to get your money. So I go there, and the car salesman is this really little weasel guy. And he talks like this. Yeah, we have you want to get, you're interested in the Suzuki Samurai? Is that what you're interested in? Yeah, we can probably make a deal on that. Yeah. We'll just talk to Abby now. Abby was the guy who ran the car lot. He owned it. And when you got to see Abby, it was like getting from Bib Fortuna to Jabba. Like, that's how they ran it. You didn't get to Jabba unless Bib allowed it. And Bib was going to make a deal. Let's make a deal, okay? We'll get you this Samurai, no problem at all. What have you got to put down? I have $200. Oh, yeah, that's not enough, man. It's a $3,000 car. That's not even 10%. It's not even 10%. I know. I have $200. You get a car. I don't know. I got to talk to Abby. I got to talk to Abby. So he goes to the office. They play good cop, bad cop. I get called in to see Abby. Now, Abby's this big guy, and he's like, "You want to buy the Samurai?" Yeah, I have $200 to put down. It's a $3,000 car. Yeah, I know. This is what I got. It has to be more. You have to put down more. If you put down more, the payment is lower. Okay. Listen, Jeff. I want to do this deal with you. Abby wants to do a deal with you. He wants to sell a car. I got it. Okay. Jeff, yeah, I have $200. No. I want to do this deal with you, but you have to meet me. You have to meet me on the Samurai. Yeah, just you up that down payment. I have it. Stop. Listen, guys, what's it going to take to get this car? It has to be at least $300. Okay, I can do $300. Oh, it was easy. Oh, yeah, it's going to be a great deal. It's a great deal. Now, you want a Samurai? Now, he's speaking to my brother-in-law. Oh, what do we get for you? He's like, I just got one a couple weeks ago. I'm good. Okay, you just let us know. You want another car? Abby's right here. We have a whole car lot. We want to sell another car to you? It's not a problem. So it was this insane comedy thing. Now, these rinky-dink car lots, they did their financing through big companies. Or, small companies that would get swallowed up. Have you ever bought something like that and you make your payments and then suddenly you get a thing saying, hey, we've sold your contract to somebody else, so now you're making contracts to this person? It's maddening. It's like a labyrinth of who gets the money. But I drove off with that Samurai, and I think I ended up paying, all said and told, the $3,000 car ended up costing me about $5,000 before it was over with. You go to a place like that and you sign your name, you are signing your life away. And the contract's like 6 feet long. It looks like Santa's list. And it's done in triplicate. You get one copy. I get one copy. The finance company. The finance company's going to get the third copy. I know, guys. I'll take the car. So I got the car. I made my payments. I had car insurance. This is back when the time when they just started saying, you must have car insurance. So I had car insurance. And I'll tell you what, I drove that Samurai. I loved that car. It didn't have a radio. You didn't lock it. And I would leave the windows down a lot of times because if somebody wanted to break in, not that there was anything to steal, but if they were going to break into that car, I wanted them to know it was already open. You don't need to cut the plastic, because that's what people would do. They would take a knife, they would cut the plastic, because you couldn't secure a car like that. And fools who did got the plastic cut. And I'm happy to say I never had the plastic cut. It was always, again, not that there was anything to steal in it. I proudly had no radio, no valuables, nothing in the glove box. It's just a car with no issues. It is not there to impress you. It is there to get you from point A to point B cheaply. The whole time I was at the Groundlings, I drove that car, man. And at about 60, it would start to shimmy down the freeway. I kept a boombox in it. I would play music on my boombox and then, take the boombox with you when you went in places, because you can't leave it in the car. And I really enjoyed driving that car. Like I said, it got great gas mileage. It was fun. And eventually, we had kids. And a car like that ain't going to cut it no more. We took Luke home as an infant. in a car seat in the back of that Samurai. And I could tell the nurse was like, this is the most dangerous vehicle I ever put a baby in. What are you guys thinking? Well, what we were thinking was we had to grow the hell up. Grow the hell up. So eventually I took the Samurai back to Abby and I traded it in for a station wagon. I drove the car that I hated as a child. I hated my mother's station wagon. As a kid, it was fun to ride in the back. You know, it had that back rumble seat that flipped up, and you could pretend you were in a spaceship, a snow speeder, or an AT-AT. But as a teen, I hated that station wagon. I mean, it's just a big, ugly utility car. Ugly, ugly. The one I got was white. I want to sell you this station wagon. Abby's got a station wagon. You got a baby. You're going to have to drive a station wagon. This is a great car. I'm like, I know. So I ended up putting a down payment and trading in the Samurai for that station wagon. And we drove it having kids. We had it through Luke and Austin, that stupid station wagon. It's nothing to ride home. We took it to Vegas a few times. You know, everything fit in it, so it did its purpose in that respect, but it was a horrible, dumb, lame, non-excitement vehicle. The only excitement this car did was when, oh my God, Austin was 2, so this is 2002. The car wasn't running well. When you stopped at a stoplight, it would stall out, and you had to restart it every time. So the car was dying. And we found out there was one of those Memorial Day mega sales at Anaheim Stadium where 100 different dealers of cheap cars bring their inventory and sell them all out to anybody that will show up. So I thought we'll trade the station wagon in as part of the down and we'll see what we can get. So we pulled into the Anaheim Stadium, and the car died, and it wouldn't restart. And I didn't tell them that. So we found a dealer who was willing to take it in as trade without even looking at it. They didn't care. And they sold us this Toyota Corolla, just a standard middle-of-the-road car. But at that point, we had to have the car or we couldn't get home because the other car was dead. We're trying to play hardball with these dealers or dealer with the idea that we have no leverage because we can't get home. The car's dead. We have to trade it in. So they brought us, it's so funny, they brought us meatball sandwiches and Cokes and were like plying us with food, anything to get us to sign our name on this sales agreement. And I kept telling him that the payment was too high. I said, you have to figure it out. I can't pay that. I can't afford it. You're going to end up repossessing the car in 3 months because I can't make that payment. Like, no, this is the payment. I go, well, then I can't take the car. You have to figure something out. And the whole time I'm thinking, we have to do this or we can't get home. We're going to end up taking the bus. So they got the payment to a reasonable amount. And we drove off with that Toyota Corolla and never looked back at that station wagon. I'm sure they junked it. I'm sure within 2 days it was a cube because it didn't run. It was the biggest hunk of junk in the galaxy and not in the good Millennium Falcon way. So we drove the Corolla forever. And I remember, I don't know if you guys have ever done this. You ever done the math and extrapolated in real terms? Because I was always a big guy. My big thing was, if you sign something and you agree to it, and that's the way it is. So when I signed a 5-year sales contract for this Corolla, when I got home, I looked at Austin. He was 2. And I said, I won't pay this car off until he's in 2nd grade. Oh my God, 5 years. That's an eternity. And that can be very depressing. When you look at time like that, it can really mess you up. It's best. That's why the human brain doesn't normally think about time or numbers in that way, because it can be overwhelming. When people play the lottery, you tell them the odds of winning are 1 in 1 billion, and they go, well, somebody's got to win. You're like, I don't think you understand the sheer numbers we're talking about. And the number I was talking about at the time was only 5. 5 years, but it seemed like an eternity. So we drove it, and we drove it, and we drove it. And at one point, whenever I turned, it started making a clicking noise. Clack, 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 clack. So I just turned the radio up, and the clacking went away. And eventually, I had to take it in. And the guy goes, one of the bolts holding your tire on has been sheared off and is rattling around in the wheel well. I said, what? Is that bad? He goes, your tire could have come off at any point. You're lucky to be alive. I went, oh, okay. Awesome. Clack, clack, clack. So we had that fixed. And eventually I made my last payment on that car. And that felt like the sheer accomplishment of paying off something that ridiculous. I paid it off, and there came a point where now we have Josie, and these cars aren't big enough, and we had to graduate to the lamest vehicle of all, the minivan. And I wasn't going to make the same mistake as the Corolla. So I waited till we got our tax refund, and I paid cash for a minivan. And you know what I did with that Corolla? I gave that Corolla to Vaughn, and I circled up for when he gave me that Vegas station wagon. And I said, Vaughn, I'm going to give you because he needed a car, and I gave it to him. And it felt really good to just give the car to him. So there's no other feeling of helping people. I mean, he helped me. Now I got in turn to help him. And I drove that stupid minivan until we moved out to Riverside. And then I took that stupid minivan back and forth to Riverside 5 to 6 days a freaking week. Oh, the worst gas mileage. I bought that stupid minivan just in time to move 35 miles from work. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? One time, we drove that to Vegas, and it had engine trouble as we pulled in, and I had to drop it off at a car repair place while we checked into our hotel, and they kept it for 3 days, so we shuttled around. I mean, we went through a nightmare with these. I've had the worst luck with cars. So the final straw for the minivan was the brake started to go out. And when you hit the brake, it was a horrible grinding noise. So I had to learn how to drive that car knowing how long it took to stop it. I would calculate. I would never put myself in a situation where I had to brake immediately. Emergencies come up, and I got really lucky. A couple of times I slammed those brakes on, and that car didn't stop. And I white-knuckled that thing. Until finally I asked my friend Steve, we got to take a look at this thing. If it needs new brakes, I have to put new brakes on it or I'm going to die. And it turned out it needed brake fluid. Steve's brother fixed it and said, dude, you're lucky to be alive. I said, the hand that you're dealt is your reality, and you just go with it. And you don't argue. You don't get mad. You say, this is what I have to work with, and this is what you work with. Now, that being said, I was incredibly stupid. I should have checked that car the first time it started grinding. So I decided we got to sell this thing. So I put it in the recycler or Craigslist. They don't have the recycler anymore. I put it on Craigslist. And these... Let's all take a break while Jeff coughs. This Russian woman and her son came over to look at it. Adult son, older Russian woman. And they wanted to buy it, but they wanted to test drive it first. So she got behind the wheel. He got in the passenger seat. I sat in the back. And I rode with this strange Russian couple, Ukrainian couple, for about a half an hour. And there were many points along the way I thought, they're just driving me somewhere to either stab me, shoot me, or make me get out of the car and just take it. And whatever happens, they can have the car as long as I don't get hurt. But that was one of the few moments that I was genuinely scared. I had put myself in a very vulnerable position because I didn't know these people. I was far from home. They had the keys to the car, but they drove me home. They paid for it. All was good. No complaints. So I found out that Honda was having some mega sale, and a friend of mine said, oh, yeah, you just have to roll in and they'll make sure you get a car. Well, I'd never heard of a car dealership doing that. So I went to Riverside Metro Honda, and I test drove a few cars, and I found one I liked, a little tiny car, which Rachel hated. But I was like, how do I get this car? I don't have a down payment. They said, well, we can work it out. And they did what's called a check chase, where they follow you to your home and get a check that you've made out for the down for like $300, and you post-date it to whatever you want. But up until that point, I wasn't going to get the car because I wasn't really qualified for it. I didn't have the money to overcome, because, a big down payment overcomes anything you don't qualify for. But you'll never believe this. I'm sitting there, and the guy's, crunching the numbers and going. There's a little room where they go in, and the banker, looks like Deal or No Deal, where the banker looks at your paperwork and either nods yes or no and comes back with a better offer. That Deal or No Deal is so much like a car transaction, it's not funny. But they were going to do it. And finally a guy walked by and he goes, dude, you're Jeff Tucker from Scary Farm. I said, yeah. He goes, man, I love Scary Farm. We got to get this guy a car. And I went, what? Okay. That's weird. And they got me in a car. They made me pay for it. I ended up getting a car on a lease. First time I'd ever leased a car. I didn't even understand what it meant. All I know is I left the dealership that day with a brand new car for the first time ever in my life. And it was a really amazing feeling. Like, I've never had a new car. I'd always had cars that were unreliable, broke down at a moment's notice, nothing to look at. I'd never been a car person because I can't be a car person because I don't have that kind of life. So it was a really proud moment of driving that car off, and the odometer said 2. Like, I'm the guy to drive this car. It felt really good. Of course, 4 months later, somebody backed into it and dented the hood, and I was terrified because I had to turn it in as a lease and pay for that hood. And then one day they sent me an email and said, we want your car back. So they took it back. I didn't pay any overages because, you could imagine a leased car going from Riverside to Buena Park 5 to 6 days a week. I was way over my mileage limit, way over. And they charge you per mile. So they put me in another car. Got a four-door that time because Rachel demanded it. And then I got another car lease. I kept leasing cars, and they kept getting upset with me because of the mileage. I said, well, you guys know I work at Knott's. That's literally how this journey began, folks. So the final time, they're like, I think we should just sell you the car and not lease you the car. The payment will stay the same. So they did that. Honda's been very good to me. I'm a big Honda fan. I only have it serviced at the dealership because I'm weird. But there is such a weird feeling in going your whole life with the roulette car. And the roulette car, not the slot machine car, where you turn it and you don't know if anything's going to come up. Is it going to start? Is it going to be dead? Whatever. I don't know. But to have a car that just starts it's such a load off your life. You know, we live in California. This is before Uber. Having a car is a necessity. You know, it's slowly being weaned away from us with Uber and whatever you want to take. I've taken Uber a bunch of times. It's a really amazing service because we're a one-car family, and we got a lot of people going a lot of places, and sometimes I get lost in the shuffle, and it's either walk to work or Uber. And sometimes I walk, and sometimes I go, I need to get there in 5 minutes, not 30. But, I don't know. This was a weird talk. It was mainly for my kids to find out, you know, what it was like growing up in bizarre cars. There were a couple times we rented there's a big truck thing called a Flex, I think it's called. We rented one of those once to go to Las Vegas, and the kids didn't want to get out of it ever. It had 3 rows of seats in the back, so each kid had their own row. If you have more than one kid, you know what that means. That means peace and quiet because they're not screaming at each other. From wrecking cars to driving cars that were wrecks to begin with. What a nightmare it's been getting from place to place. What a nightmare. Chinooks, Dolphins, MGs, Hondas, Toyotas, Vegas, minivans, you name it, man. You name it. So, thanks for indulging me in this bizarre episode. I've got some good ones coming up as long as I can get my freaking voice back. Massive thank you to all the people who support this show on Patreon. You have no idea what your support means. Like, share, subscribe, all that nonsense. When I ship any items I sell on online stuff, I always tuck in a flyer for the show. And I got a nice letter today from a guy who bought an action figure. I say action figure. It was a 6th scale Uber figure. But he said, hey, I just noticed this note and I'm a subscriber. So that's awesome. Thank you for checking out the show. I love doing it, even though my voice is trashed. But this must end, right? This voice, this nasal thing must end at some point. I must get my voice. I can't live my entire rest of my existence like this. So I'm going to end up back at the hospital, back at the doctor, having them look at this. Because whatever they gave me last time didn't work. It's terrible. Have a great holiday, folks. Happy Thanksgiving. Christmas is coming. Be kind to each other. Take a deep breath. Stores are crazy. People like to yell. It ain't worth it. All we have is each other. I'm Jeff Tucker, and this is 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
I think perhaps it was a desire on my part to write down an event that was unique and special in my life.
Now, you can personalize your tapes in several ways, either by inserting your voice before or after the phony's voice. Now, this way your friends will know that they have reached you and not a wrong number.
Good night, future boy.